Hi, today I'm going to show you guys how to refute the trappy Stafford Gambit. So let's get started. So the Stafford Gambit comes out of the Petrov. Let's say e4, e5, knight f3, knight f6. This is the Petrov. When white accepts, black normally accepts. Instead, the Stafford Gambit is knight c6, allowing white to capture the pawn without black recapturing. This is the beginning. And there are many resources why this opening is very, very trappy. White can get checkmated extremely quickly. I'll show you some of the ideas. So it's white to move here. The first thing white does is defend the e4 pawn. d3 is what I recommend, and black will often go bishop c5, eyeing the f2 square. There are some traps here you need to be aware of. I'm going to show you the main ideas here. The first main idea for black is that black wants to put a piece on the g5 square, and so the first thing we do is prevent black from putting a piece on the g5 square. You'll also find that this bishop e2 not only defends g5, but also defends the queen. There are some lines, for example, like this, where the queen might drop and the bishop is holding on to that queen. Okay, so not very many Stafford players are going to play like this, but let's say they put their knight on g4, we take that knight on g4, and they threaten checkmate on f2 like this. The move that I'm going to recommend here is g3. g3 forces black to basically capture this bishop on g4, and this is not what Stafford players want. They don't want the queens to come off. If black does anything else, for example, taking the bishop, we take the queen, you take my queen, and again, this gets the queens off, but white's up a piece here. So I've seen other resources recommended. I think g3 is just the best way to get black out of their attacking ideas. Okay, so most black players don't actually play knight g4. Instead, they often play h5, preparing g4, so black doesn't lose a piece. Here, what I and basically everyone recommends is this c3 move. This bishop on this diagonal is way too strong. We're looking to play d4 to cut off this bishop. Keep that in mind. Okay, so most Stafford players here will play knight g4 to target the f2 square, and what I recommend is d4, blocking this bishop's view and getting some tempo. If they go for queen h4 targeting f2, we play g3 with a double attack here, and we're winning material. So most Stafford players won't play this. Instead, they'll play the bishop back to b6, and it's tempting to go h3 or f3, but it's important to note that black may get the additional idea of marching the g-pawn up the board, which is difficult to defend, especially if you don't like being attacked. And so what I recommend instead is knight d2 up to f3. Knight d2, and then let's say black plays a move. I don't know. Maybe black gets opposite this g3 pawn. We then attack the queen, or maybe black instead puts their queen on the d6 square. We could still go knight f3, just follow this plan blindly, and then later kick away this knight with h3, and then perhaps castle. Since we've put our knight on f3, I'm not so worried about this g5, g4 idea, because now I have two pieces watching this g5 square, and so rook g8, g5 is not nearly as dangerous. Black is generally looking to castle queenside here, and so it would make a lot of sense to go a4, a5, and attack this bishop and maybe prepare some sort of attack on the king. As well, in the immediate position, there is the e5 fork, but I'm trying to give you general ideas. I'm not trying to look at too many specifics. Okay, so in this exact position, knight g4 is pretty easily met with. So the main line probably for black is to go bishop b6, prophylaxis against the d4 move, making sure d4 doesn't get a tempo on the bishop. And here's the main line of the Stafford. In this position, like I said, black may try to attack on the king side, so black is often castling queen side. For that reason, I like to throw in a4, and depending on whether they go a6 or a5, you're going to want to attack this bishop and get this pawn as far up the board as possible to prepare an attack for when they castle queenside. So I don't know what they play here, maybe a5. And then here, it's pretty important to go knight d2, knight f3, and get this piece over to the king side as soon as possible. Just one thing to be aware of. We want to go d4 and block this bishop, but that obviously drops the e4 pawn. So we don't go d4 until this knight basically has left the attack of e4. So we go knight d2. Again, if they go knight g4, our first move is d4. Let's say they play something else here like bishop e6. I go knight f3. Let's say they play knight g4 here. We go d4. And there's some tricks here to be aware of. The very first trick is attacking the f2 square. We go g3. And the problem with g3 is that h4 is going to attack our pawn. So even though g3 temporarily resolves the problem, it's going to lead to a bit of problems for white, and you just have to know this idea. The idea here is to go knight f3, blocking the queen's view of f2. They go h4, we take on h4, and now we have pretty good control of the position. We're ready to basically push the queen back and push the knight back, and you should be able to get a really strong playable middle game here. And let's say black does something else here. Let's say they try prepping a rook g8 push, something like that. Again, we go knight f3, get good control over the g5 square, and don't play d4 until this knight leaves away from the pressure on e4. If the black players try to play a positional game from here, remember they're only down one pawn. They might try to play something positional. Basically, here's where the rest of the pieces are going to go. The queen goes to c2, where it watches e4 and prepares the d4 advance. This bishop may move up to f4 or g5, depending on how the game goes, and you're most of the time going to castle kingside. Okay, so another example of how black may play something like, let's say, queen d6. Again, knight f3 is the move I'm recommending. Obviously, knight c4 is a bit stronger, but I'm trying to keep this repertoire simple, just the main ideas, and the main idea is that knight f3 is definitely still extremely playable, extremely strong. Or if they play a move like bishop e6, again, knight f3. And then here in this position, whenever they go knight g4, again, the very first move that we could do is d4 blocking the bishop. Save d4 every time to block this bishop. Okay, so that's basically it. I've rewound to the main line position. Remember, the couple things to remember are the king is castling queenside, so we go a4. When the knight goes to g4, we block the bishop's view with d4. And the very last thing is this knight goes to f3 before deciding anything else. All right, so thanks for watching, and give me a suggestion in the comments as to something else to cover. Thank you.